Sunday. The United States Air Force demonstration team lights up the track over the Daytona Motor Speedway as Orange Man burns up the track in his nitro-burning funny car called the Beast. You had to be there. I thought it was a pretty cool day. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your right angle about the most epic thing I've seen a president do since Ronald Reagan defeated the Soviets and won the Cold War. It was Donald Trump at the Daytona 500, flew in low over the stands in Air Force One, showing off those beautiful blue colors. And then to the delight of the crowd, he not only overflew the gigantic Daytona 500 race, but then apparently did a lap in his presidential limousine nicknamed the Beast. Steve, you often hear people use the term after like emerging from a crisis like an impeachment or something like that, let's say. You might often hear the term that somebody went out and did a victory lap. But as a person who's really keen on messaging and imagery, I don't think I've ever seen a victory lap like the victory lap that Donald Trump took in his nitro-burning funny car at the Daytona Motor Speedway after a low pass with Air Force One and screaming crowds of 100,000 people. I don't know. Which smells more like freedom? Is it the smell of kerosene coming out of a jet engine, or is it burning rubber on a motor speedway? I'm kind of split on this one.
Oh yeah, it's all so America. I love it.
It is so America.
Oh man, I got a lot to say about this one. I really do. Do you remember about a year or so into Obama's first term, if you can think back to the darkest days of our republic, there was somebody put up that billboard of a smiling George W. Bush, and it said, "Miss me yet?"
Yeah.
What I would like to do is, maybe I'll do this after we're done taping today, because it won't be that hard, is to take that photograph of Barack Obama on his girl bike with his safety helmet on with the little caption, "Miss me yet?" Because after you've seen Trump burn rubber at Daytona in the Beast, how could you ever miss mom jeans wearing safety helmet, girl bike riding Obama? It's just you could never miss him in a million years. It's just it isn't done. The other thing about that was. I need to tell you something a little bit about the Beast. The presidential limo, and I think they've got two of them. There's like one that stays in Washington, another that flies around with them on an Air Force One chase cargo plane and all the rest. This is it's a Cadillac. It's a custom job. I don't think there are any other Cadillac limos like this in the world. It's heavily armored. It's got a super beefy engine, suspension, run flat tires, and all the rest. For all I know, it's got pop-up laser beams for shooting down air-to-ground missiles and all the rest. It's just it might be the best limo anybody ever made, and it's ugly as sin. It's absolutely hideous, but it announces itself. If a president is going to have a limo and that president is Trump, this is his limo. It was built way before he was president, but somebody was thinking, man, if Donald Trump were ever president, what kind of limo would we build? And this is it. It's absolutely the Beast. There was some lefty, I think, on Twitter who was wondering about the safety concerns of having,
as they oft do.
Yes, of having Air Force One, the big 747 jumbo jet buzz all those spectators. And let me tell you, I was at an Air Force Academy football game a couple of years ago, and the Air Force Academy is just a few miles down the road from me. I can be there in 10 minutes, and we get flybys at every game. It's great, but at this particular game, they flew a B-52H overhead. This thing, you have no idea how big a B-52 is until you've seen one fly over you. You have no idea.
It's all wing.
You have no idea how loud those eight jet engines slung under those massive wings. You have no idea how loud they are until they've rattled one of your fillings out, which is about what happened when this thing flew over. I was slack-jawed in amazement. I mean, my actual marrow liquefied briefly as this thing flew overhead. It was thrilling. I was slack-jawed. And my buddy Kojak, who is a Air Force, he's retired from the Air Force, and I went to the game with him. He looked at me afterwards, and he kind of leans in and he goes, "You should have heard them fly over when they had the old weak engines, because they had to come in full throttle. That was only about 2/3." Like,
That's
whoa!
epic.
That's America. That's what I want to see Trump do next. I want to see him do a flyby in the damn cockpit in a B-52, maybe over his own re-inauguration next January. Wouldn't that be awesome?
You could roll it.
And then parachute down directly.
Yeah, parachute down. I'm with you.
Directly onto the podium to give his inauguration speech. That would be epic and wonderful and so America. And let me just finish by saying this. I know I've gone on way too long, but this is a guy who actually seems to like Americans, and he likes getting out there and pressing the flesh and doing ridiculous hoorah America stuff like a victory lap at Daytona. And I'm just picturing Barack Obama when he was still president. Some little aide kind of slinks in first thing in the morning and says, Mr. President, you've got a meet and greet with the bitter clingers at 10 o'clock this morning. And Obama says, do I have to? And the little aide says, yes, sir, you really do. It's for the votes. And Obama says, all right, fine, but no touching. And now we got Trump instead. It's such a 180. I love this country.
You're talking about the B-52. There's a true story about a fighter pilot who was in having some mechanical difficulties, and he's in the pattern landing at his Air Force base. He says he's declaring an emergency, needs to land, and the air traffic controller said, negative, can't do it. We've got a B-52 with an engine failure on approach. And the fighter pilot jet radioed back and said, oh, the dreaded 7-engine landing. So, Scott, the optics of this, well, first of all, part of it is designed to drive the left insane. For example, this guy tweeting, I don't know if this is safe. As if the lefty who made that tweet, should Trump and Air Force One and the president immolate himself into a crowd of 100,000 NASCAR fans, I'm sure he'd be crying and weeping the blues for the rest of his life should that ever happen. Is this safe? Please. That's the other thing too. Scott, it's like, we don't care if it's safe. It doesn't matter. It's cool. And I know I'm beating around the edges of this whole jingoistic thing because I like to, because it's fun, but nevertheless, there is something triumphant about this. And it's not politically triumphant. It's not like, hey, Donald Trump, versus it's like, to me, this kind of thing is almost like off in the distance. The storm clouds are clearing and the end of weeniness is about to occur. It's sunrise in America again. And all of these little weenie crybaby smart car driving, they don't know what to do. It's too much winning.
I think that, I tend to see the positive side of this thing. And first of all, there's a lot of folks that go to NASCAR races, especially Daytona. And this is a big dang deal. And frankly, it's not necessarily a sport that matters on the coasts or, around New York City or Los Angeles, much more in the middle of the country. That folks care about that. It's a highly unusual sport in the sense that little tiny lightweight guys can be world champions in it. So there aren't a lot of sports.
Mike Bloomberg.
What's that?
I said, hear that, Mike Bloomberg? There's an opportunity for you.
Other than being a jockey, it's really hard to be a major athlete if you're 5'2" and weigh 120 pounds, but it's actually a benefit if you're in a race car. That there's a big slice of Americana that's being served up at Daytona. And I tend to think of it not as an in-your-face gesture by the president, but more as a salute to America, as a way to give a great story to the people who are there in the stands and in the infield as they see that plane going by. And frankly, and this is funny, I didn't think about this till you started talking about it. The Secret Service driver got a chance to take a lap at Daytona.
Yeah.
That's just awesome. President Trump has been everywhere, seen everything. He's had every thrill that money can buy. But there are a bunch of people around him and, who got to witness that event for whom that was something really special. And, you can't fault the guy for that. There are things that other presidents have done to reach out. I think of George Bush throwing the first pitch after the 9/11 attacks and,
Oh, that was huge.
there are some really great moments in presidential history where they had, there were presidents who really had their finger on the pulse of what the American people needed to see at that time. But that was really great, and I don't think it's ever going to be fully appreciated by the people in the Twitterati and on the coasts and in the major media markets. But that was something special for NASCAR fans and for a lot of people in the middle of this country. And I salute the president for the way he did that.
Yeah, and I'm really glad Scott mentioned that, folks, because, I live in Los Angeles, and especially when Obama was president or Clinton, I mean, Air Force One was here every other week. I mean, every other week. Oh, the president's in town. Great. So now we have to sit in traffic longer. But I have to tell you something. If you've never seen Air Force One in the actual air or in the flesh, period, if you've never seen that big blue bird come in over, it is not just the president of the United States. It is American power in all its glory. And when you see that big bird flying overhead, no matter who you are or where you are, it is a hell of a thing to see. And I agree with Scott 100%. For Donald Trump to show up at NASCAR is to show up in the presence of the people who never get to see these things because they're not elitists, they're not fabulously wealthy, they're not big influencers, they're just the people that make the country work. And this is clearly the kind of people that Donald Trump has in mind, and that's why people love him so much. And I, as a person who's been particularly interested in optics and things like Obama's iconography and things like how does this look, how does it appear, I understand stagecraft, I understand visual appeal and emotional appeal. To me, it's simply astonishingly good optics. It's just exactly why I said that the next president is going to have to come from the pop culture. He's going to have to know how to do that, not just fly over Daytona, but to bring the limousine on the track and take it around for a spin. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. It is a populist thing in the best sense of the word, in the sense of the president to the degree, I don't think Donald Trump believes this, but in terms of the imagery of it, it is the president of the United States descending from the sky in this big silver bird and then getting down on the track where everybody else is eating their popcorn and hot dogs and having fun just like everybody else. He's a master of it. And I would just like to say that, President Trump, I know pretty much watch every episode of the show. And I'd just like to say, if you decide to do this again in the future, I at first didn't think there would be any way to improve on it, but having given it a little bit of thought, I think you could actually improve on it just a little bit. So here are just some suggestions. First of all, I would get when you're doing the lap next time, I would make sure that your driver hits the button so that the headlights fold down and the twin 50 caliber machine guns come out. That's the first thing I would do. And then I'd light those babies up. I would use the license plates that go from US 1, from number 1 and just flips over and then it says like Pelosi and California tags on it and stuff. And that way you can, dump oil out of the back of the limos so that you can cause all these other guys to skid out and stuff. I think one of the things that I would have done personally, Mr. President, is an opportunity I think you missed. You could have taken a pickup truck, and not an American one, a Japanese one or something. And you could have, in the backs of this pickup truck, you could have put a guy dressed up like Osama bin Laden, a guy dressed up like Hitler, a guy dressed up like Saddam Hussein, and a guy dressed up like Barack Obama. And you could have given them all actual AK-47s, and they could have actually opened fire on your limousine with real bullets because they just bounce right off. That would have been epic as well, I think. But I think probably the missed opportunity most of all was crossing the finish line where you could have reached over and hit the eject button and an effigy of Nancy Pelosi gets shot right out of that front right seat, just like did in, was it Goldfinger, I want to say? Goldfinger or Thunderball, one of the others. This is how you win elections, Mr. President. You're close, but you're not quite all the way there yet. And in closing, let me just say this. I know a lot of people look at this whole America, foam finger thing and think we're a bunch of idiots. But here's the joke. The joke is we know it makes us look like idiots, but we're not idiots and we do it anyway. What really happens when you get into things like NASCAR and we're number one and stuff is what you're looking at is you're looking at a people who are so confident, who are so sure of themselves and having so much damn fun that we don't care if you think it makes us look like idiots. We don't care. We don't care. We live in a country where there is enough wealth and freedom for a guy to build a jet-powered outhouse. And we've had him on this show before. And a country that can build a jet-powered outhouse because one individual has enough money, enough time, enough skill, and enough expertise to be able to do it is a country that can do any damn thing it wants to and doesn't hurt a living soul in the process. Where else would you live except for a country like this? What's the matter with you people? I say let in everybody who wants to come to America, so long as we get a chance to expel all of the people that live here that don't want to live in America. I think that'd be a great deal, and I'd be willing to take that in a heartbeat. Mr. President, I'm proud of you. It was absolutely brilliant. I'm looking forward to much of the same. My hope, as we pointed out on our backstage show, would be that after your inaugural, you would basically take the jetpack that Scott mentioned in his show, fly that up to 10,000 feet, eject, have it explode in a ball of fire, parachute down into the middle of the Rose Bowl, surrounded by beautiful women with cheerleader outfits and roses, and then have your beautiful wife, Melania, step forward, wrap her arms around you, kiss you around the neck, and have you say, okay, now let's get to work. I know my tastes are a little peculiar and perhaps a little Baroque, but nevertheless, I'm a guy who knows what he likes, and sometimes I want to see it. It's good to be happy. It's good to win. That'll do it for this edition of Right Angle, made possible by the millions, literally millions of patriotic Americans who are out there racing and flying around having a good time. And if you want to be one of us, you can join us at BillWhittle.com. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. We'll see you next week on Right Angle.